Hey everybody, welcome to Tea and Chocolate. I'm Lauren Spagnolo and today's guest is Dustin Anderson. And today I'm going to be speaking with Dustin regarding his journey with Parkinson's. He was diagnosed in 2016. And according to Dustin, this has probably been the greatest gift of his life so far, in addition to his wife, right?
Number one.
Yeah. So Dustin, thanks so much for joining me with me today.
Thanks for having me, Lauren.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of, maybe the early signs or how this journey progressed for you.
If I think about it, my life has been full of anxious moments, and this just feels like overblown anxiety. In terms of like the way the medical system gave me the diagnosis, it was probably in 2016. My index finger was wiggling. I was going through a really bad bout of insomnia, which led to a really, really bad bout of insomnia. I didn't sleep in 2017, more or less. And I went to the doctor, went to numerous doctors. It took forever to get through the system. And then one woman in Surrey asked me what do you think? She does all her little tests and stuff. And then she asked, what do you think it is? And I think it's fear. Because that's what it felt like right from the beginning. Fear, just an overblown fear that got out of control. Because if you think of an animal, when they get scared, what do? They shake.
Right.
Yeah, and when you're human and you shake, your mind creates this loop, and you start shaking more, and you create all this. The ego creates all this self-deprecating and self-destructive knowledge, and just gets out of control. And I can go further into this actual story, but I believe that answered your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you. So when you initially heard those words, what was that like for you?
It seemed like a death sentence. May I swear?
Why not?
I was fucking scared.
All
I
right.
was fucking scared. I remember my wife Farah and I were in Surrey, and we're driving back, and I'm just bawling my eyes out while driving down the number one highway. Brutal. I was so scared because my whole identity was based around, I was a professional dancer and a performer, and my whole identity was based around my physicality. And it was, I was going to get taken away so we can become like some shaky old dude.
Right.
Yeah. It was really frightening. And that led into, like I said, a year of insomnia, like brutal insomnia. 2017 was tough, dark year.
At what point did you decide, okay, well, let's look beyond the physicality and maybe describe a little bit about your choice not to take the path of allopathic, with medication, and how did you come to those decisions?
The allopathic turning away from drugs never made any sense to me. I believe that the allopathic system is great for broken bones, for sewing people together from car accidents, and for acute care. Awesome. Wonderful. Removing tumors. Beautiful. Well, maybe not beautiful, but
yeah, gotcha.
very effective.
Right.
But for matters of the mind, which I know this is for me, and I believe, and every person I've ever been exposed to with this gift, because it is, if you allow it to be,
right,
is led a life full of fear, adrenalized fear. And when the body is adrenalized, when the dopamine system turns off, in order to that's just the way the system works. And when you live 45 years of being adrenalized, trying to prove yourself, and all this ego-driven activity constantly, and the body's going to adapt to it. The dopamine turns off. And so, I mean, I didn't really know that at the time. That was through the journey of the spiritual journey I've gone on, right? I grew up as an atheist, grew up fearful and huge boundaries. I'm short. So I carried this short man syndrome, trying to always prove myself as an athlete and prove that I'm bigger and stronger, and all these externalities that never served me. It certainly caused a lot of harm. But through the practice, I knew this was a spiritual journey. And, I met this awesome doctor in Edmonton, Dr. Ung. Chinese.
Oh, Stephen Ong?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you've
I
heard
know,
of him?
yeah. He's the medical Qigong. He's also an MD though, right?
Yes, and he's on the College of Physicians of University of Alberta.
Right, okay.
So I sent him an email. I was on tour performing as a children's performer in Edmonton. And I sent him an email
Okay.
saying I heard that he's a international qigong master and he's helping people all over and
Hmm.
through my dance mentor. And he said call this guy. So well, I emailed him and he said, the Chinese believe Parkinson's is a loss of spiritual connection. Heal your relationship with your mother. Boom, right to my heart. Like that was exactly it. I grew up I grew up with a single mother in the 70s.
Hmm.
She was an alcoholic. She never felt love. She grew up as a foster child. And she did her best, but I was molested as a child. I never felt safe.
Wow.
So what does that do? I mean, it's so logical how this came about.
Mm.
If you allow it, right? If you get caught up in the fear and want to give away all your power to the Western medical system, which they're doing their best, but in my
Yep.
mind, for this kind of shit, just not good enough. And
Right.
there's also the problem with the medical system. And I think is there's a profit motive. Pharmaceutical companies have enormous profit involved in feeding people drugs, and I think that shifts the moral compass.
Hmm. So in meeting Dr. Ong, he gave you this sort of insight in terms of the connection with your mom.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about that, you like carried that like obviously through your whole life. And I'm wondering, you know, you couldn't help it. Like, do you know what I'm saying? It's like you may have gone on the path of this adrenaline, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sports, acting, and so on and so forth. You were thinking you were following your heart, though, too, weren't you?
Yep. That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking that all these choices that I made, like being a performer, being rich and famous, proving to myself and everybody else that I'm worthy, that I'm
Mm,
lovable, and all
mm,
these
mhm.
programmings that I carried and that led me down a really self-destructive path.
Okay. Did the practice of qigong help with sort of, I guess, your healing journey in terms of, because you're shaking, right? There's a bit of a tremor in your body.
Yep, that goes, and sometimes I can shut it down. Sometimes
Oh.
I get calm. Yeah, I mean, it's getting, yeah. So Dr. Ong, medical qigong is unlike like regular qigong, right? Medical qigong is very stationary, and so it started me down a path of exploring medical qigong. And Dr. Ong, I think what he gave me most is love. Man, that guy is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
He is so compassionate and so loving. I did a workshop of his at Hollyhock.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Yep.
one moment where we're doing laughter qigong, and it's doing this walking movement in a line. It's 50 meters long, and everybody's like through uneven ground down at the bottom level there in the grass, and we're just struggling. And we're walking by him, and he's laughing. He's got this infectious laugh, and I realized he wasn't just laughing. He was loving us,
Hmm.
and love heals. Love eh, inspires a mother to pick a car up off her children. Love heals fourth stage cancer. Love does incredible things. Chemicals can help along the way. But, honestly, the Western medical system doesn't know. They say they don't know. Well, why would I give all my power away to people that don't know? That just seems fucking stupid.
Right. So does
I mean, if you don't know, why do I follow you? And on the Mayo Clinic's website, you go to Cinemet as one of the major drugs they prescribe for this.
okay.
The second symptom or side effect of Cinemet is more tremor. Why the fuck would I do that? That seems stupid. Like, and I get it. You get so scared. The fear is the worst part of this. The shaking is irritating.
Mm.
Like the brain fog is irritating. The shuffling is irritating. But the fear is the worst. And the fear is something that anybody's given or that's gone down a healing journey. That's what I have to overcome first. I'm sure you faced it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That cloud that just hangs over it. It's just like this darkness that doesn't seem that you can't see the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
You just keep pushing forward, keep building faith.
Right, right. So, how has it helped you overall?
Medical Qigong.
Hmm.
Well, there's more to the medical Qigong story. So I started reading books by people that healed. So there's a guy, John C. Coleman in Australia, who started the books, then Bianca Mole in the States. And then
Okay.
this guy named Howard Shipke, who wrote this book called Fighting Parkinson's and Winning. And initially, I hate the title fighting because it's so American, right? It's so adversarial, right? It's us versus them. I mean,
Certainly. Yeah.
I attribute that to a very American ideology.
It,
But then I
it
bought the book and then go ahead.
well, wouldn't Europeans use that language?
I have no idea.
Okay. Okay. I'm just curious. Okay. I know it's not an Eastern thing, but
No, it's not an Eastern thing. Eastern would
yeah.
be embracing the journey and,
Yes.
you know, walking the path with Parkinson's or something like that, right? Which wouldn't appeal to North Americans. I get why he named it that way because it certainly feels like a fight sometimes.
Yes. Okay.
Practicing. Anyway, I read his story. The beginning part is his story. And his story was like, hit me in the heart again. His story was his life was led by adrenaline. And it makes so logical to me when you keep the body, when it's like working out.
Hmm.
When you're working out, you're accustomed, getting the body accustomed to a higher workload. And so some things work better, some things don't. When your body turns to adrenaline, which I always pursued adrenaline. Like when I told you, like, I was a dancer on cruise ships in Europe,
Hmm.
and we'd be in Sicily, and I could see. Remember telling a passenger once, there's a mountain in the background. I said, I'm going to rollerblade up that mountain. So I started rollerblading up mountains.
Oh my.
Going up is hard work, but it's the down that's the scary part because you're going fast and you're slaloming like you are with skiing. But it's that kind of stuff that I did all the time. I'm just going to turn off my phone. I forgot to turn it off.
Okay. While we're on air. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. I just want to make sure. I mean, I don't get a lot of calls anyway since I
Hmm.
stopped working in show business. Let's turn it off. Yeah, so and it just constantly, I'm glad I was born when I was because with this day and age of YouTube and people doing extreme things, I would have killed myself or worse, put myself in a wheelchair
Hmm.
with just the extreme attitudes of always trying to prove myself.
So, how did you decide to say, you know what? I know that that drug that you mentioned gives you more tremors, and it sounds like it maybe does it worsen the disease? And also, I know that you don't want to call it dis-ease in some way, too, right? This is
Well,
a
dis-ease is exactly what it is.
okay.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, also, why would you take L-Dopa, which is a synthetic dopamine, if
Hmm.
if you give your body synthetic additions, then the body stops producing it itself. Like it's all. I mean, it's logical. I'm not a doctor, nor do I desire to be one.
Hmm.
But it's like it doesn't make any sense to me. Like it just. And so, go ahead.
So inside you, at one point, you had this, desire for adrenaline. How did you go from that to I think I'm going to really follow my instincts here and take the path of like just eating well and doing the best that you can and the qigong without any sort of medical intervention, traditional medical intervention.
Western medical intervention,
Okay, Western, yeah.
right? With Dr. Ong's guidance. Well, Howard's book. Howard healed himself through medical qigong. He made a program called what he calls the Recipe for Parkinson's Recovery, trademarked,
Okay.
so which I find quite American. But the and so I do that. I've been doing that every day for a year. I hired him as a coach, and he's man loving. Howard Shipke is loving. I mean, and that's sort of what you gain from this sort of journey. If you allow yourself, just the love that's there, that's around us, and reading books. Like I've read the Bhagavad Gita. I've read the Course in Miracles, tons of spiritual books. For anybody out there that's facing a serious dis-ease, Nita Morjani's book, Dying to Be Me, is awesome.
Oh
That
yeah, I've
woman
read
is,
that.
she's inspiring, right? She was 4th-stage cancer on death's doorstep,
Hmm.
but she knew she was going to heal.
Hmm.
And she did. Within 6 weeks, 90% of the 95% of the cancer was gone.
Well, she technically died.
Well,
and then came back.
sure.
Well, it's true that she technically died. That's why the doctors were mystified. Like, you should have died, kind of thing.
Yeah. Did you read the book? Because that's not what I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah. Well, near death experience.
Yeah.
Her
Or
whole thing
even,
was moving back or going into that space and making a decision clearly. And this is what she says anyway. I believe her.
well, I mean, okay. So about belief. So I
Mm,
don't know any of these lab coats with their Bunsen burners and their beakers, right? The omniscient they that do all these tests and the latest research. I fucking hate that term. I hate that term because it's like, why should I not trust Anita, but I should trust some random lab coats in some randomized testing somewhere in some lab somewhere. I don't know them. I don't know her. I like her story. It's all about belief, what we choose to believe.
well, yeah, that's true. But, we also have we have a culture that, we want to feel safe and secure. The ultimate thing is that we want to have that safety and security, and we're also terrified to die. And the part of us is in major denial. So when we get a diagnosis like this or anything else, then of course we're forced to look at our lives. You know this. We can, where it's really makes you face yourself in a different kind of way. And this isn't something that is new to you. You know this. So that being said, like, how would you say it's changed you for the better?
I am happier than I've ever been. My marriage is better than I've ever been. Like what is before, always
Yeah.
choosing to try to prove myself with the adrenalized, constantly busy and constantly
Right.
um, choosing to keep myself anxious and self-loathing.
Mm.
I would say that I'm more loving, more
Mm-hmm.
patient.
Mm-hmm.
I'm I have moments of deep peace despite this constant frustration with. I mean, I'm going through a frustrating period right now with the tremor. Right, it's a little frustrating, but
Okay.
because since this COVID-19 stuff, I've been taking in lots of digital stuff, and digital brings up my anxiety considerably.
Okay.
So, but the yeah, I'm doing things slower, but the quality of work that I'm doing is higher. I've realized that show business wasn't for me, that it was another dream, that I like being behind the scenes more than I like performing.
Mm-hmm.
Performing was something I thought is a necessary evil,
Mm-hmm.
but what I really prefer doing is being a creator.
Is it
So
in, is it in some way a relief?
yeah, absolutely. Especially the last year or two, like just I was so scared to be on stage and so scared to be seen as vulnerable and to realize that I'm vulnerable. Like even in where we live in South Nanaimo, like South Nanaimo is a complicated area that's full of sufferers,
Mm.
drug addicts, alcoholics,
Okay.
lots of dysfunction. And I've had to kick people or we were lucky enough to be able to buy a home, and our home is situated on old boundary lines that are. It was an old store, and this home was owned by drug addicts and slumlords, and so it had a reputation. And so we've had to gently instill in the neighbors that would mistreat this building that new people live here and we care. And in the past, I would have puffed my chest and got really scared. And I get scared, but I'm scared of it's different. I'm just approaching people differently. I used to be described as prickly, and I'm not as prickly anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just easier to be around,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. And
Mm-hmm.
certainly for my wife to be able to socialize with other people.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you've mentioned the sufferers in your neighborhood there. Um, I guess you've probably found a piece of it being able to be relatable. In the sense that they've got their own path, right? So we're all relatable.
Yeah. Well, the Course in Miracles, one of the main teachers, Kenneth Wapnick, has this saying, be kind, for everybody's fighting a hard battle.
Right.
And I would say that that's something that I've really gained in this experience, is just empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Empathy for people that suffer.
For some people who don't know what the Bhagavad Gita is, because you've mentioned both that and the Course in Miracles, did you just want to give like, this is what this is what this is, for the sake of the audience that may not be familiar with these two?
Boy.
Well, don't take half an hour on each on that.
Wow. Okay, so the Bhagavad Gita is essentially the Bible for Hinduism.
There you
That's
go.
how I would describe it.
Perfect.
And, it's based on the story of Arjuna having a conversation with Krishna before he goes into battle. And it's a very short book. It's part of a much longer series. And I read it
And
looking for answers. Well, I read lots of things in desperation, right? When you go through something like this, you're just looking for that silver bullet.
Right.
And really, in this journey, there's no silver bullet. It's a transformation.
Right. Yes.
So, I mean, I can't, and my memory for those kind of things, like I just tried to garner seeds of wisdom from it. And honestly, Bhagavad Gita was during a really, really scared time, so I don't remember as much as would be entertaining for your audience.
Right.
As far as the Course in Miracles was a direct transmission from Jesus to Helen Schumann, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And the Course in Miracles, for anybody, it's not a Bible per se. It's direct teachings from God or from Jesus, that we have two minds, or two voices speaking to us all the time. The ego, which is the first voice that speaks, and always tells you something shitty. That's my words, not theirs. And then there's the Holy Spirit, which is the loving, ever present, omniscient voice of God that tells you that you're enough. There's nothing to feel guilty for. I mean, the Course in Miracles is a tough read. I honestly, I haven't read through it all, because it just takes forever. And try to be perfectionism is another symptom of Parkinson's.
Okay.
At least that's how I describe it. And the reading something. So have you read it?
No.
Have you read part of it? Oh, it's dense. It's super dense.
I know. They're mind benders. They are actually. I find, like, just to try and put some understanding to them. Like, I can understand it, and then I just need it broken down more.
Well, I think the Course in Miracles, as I've been told, just read it and let it wash over you, and that's what I'm doing right now. I try to
lovely.
Not try to be perfectionist and understand it right away.
How did you go from being an atheist then to being open to, let's call it spirit or your higher self?
Connection to God.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm far more comfortable saying the word God. I'd say Parkinson's. When what you've been taken away, how you identified yourself is taken away.
Right.
Then what's important?
Mm-hmm.
What's important is love.
Mm-hmm.
What's important is connection.
Yeah.
And I have to say that I don't own this. This journey has put me on the spiritual superhighway for enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
Enlightenment's a bit of a joke, but I'm
okay.
Off from that.
Uh-huh.
But, I'm certainly gained so much for this experience.
Now, have you stayed in touch with like a Western medicine doctor?
No.
At all?
No. Well, I had this doctor from Iceland once at the beginning when we first moved to Nanaimo, and he was like, keep trying things. Like, this guy was also like Dr. Ong, like just loving and so un-Western.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh yeah. And he's like, keep trying things. Because ultimately people heal from this every day. Every day people heal from this. People heal from cancer every day too.
Right.
People heal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about transformation. This has been given to me to kick me in the ass to change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's hard.
It takes a lot of courage.
And fucking perseverance and tenacity.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've realized, like, man, I am tenacious and resilient.
Mm-hmm. So for someone who might know someone who has Parkinson's, or may get a diagnosis of Parkinson's, what kind of things would you say or recommend?
Don't listen to the internet experts. Like when
Right.
like you must have had this in your journey too, right? Like where people are like, the latest research says you should be eating gummy bears at 2 and 4 p.m. Like, fuck off. When it
Okay.
says the latest research, I just start want to puke in my mouth. Like, because ultimately they don't know. It's like all this, like this COVID-19 shit, right? That's happening right now.
Hmm.
They want, the latest research. There's no fucking research. This has been 4 weeks of this. You can't research jack shit. Like you can't know. There's no knowing of this. What you know is what's in front of you now.
Right. There's something to be said about, I understand what you're saying. Like, so for example, the research says, I mean, obviously everyone has to follow their path of authenticity. And if someone pulls them in the direction of being a Western medicine doctor, then great, that there's no fault there. There's no, but I understand it because we're like more or less on the same page from the perspective of, let's look at something else. Let's look at, okay, well, what's this Parkinson's really, really about? And maybe we can ask the question in a different way, in the sense of, who am I? But it's coming from a different place.
Yeah, or yeah, what is it teaching me? Like what the
Right.
obvious things are like, what do you do when you're scared? Well, what did I do when my mom would beat me to a pulp and send me out, like when I'd run out into the streets in Edmonton and in the middle of the night in winter, naked because my mom's beat me to the pulp. I'm shaking because I'm scared.
Right.
Well, I've done lots of therapy, but I obviously hadn't done enough.
Well,
No, not done enough, but this
right. But
journey.
but in fairness to that, I know that, you can do a lot of talk therapy, which is helpful. Um, but, I mean, the science and the backup shows, sorry, I just said science, that we need to address it in our bodies.
Yeah, like
Right.
Gabor Mate,
Pardon?
like Dr. Gabor Mate.
Dr. Gabor Mate. Yeah.
Like right, like he's a Western guy. I mean, I'm not opposed to science. I just don't see it as a religion. Like in our culture, we're so religiously devout to science, to some random dude in a lab coat with a fucking Bunsen burner that I don't know. I don't know if
Dude
it's
or woman.
do that, whatever, right?
Okay.
Right, whatever, do just single syllable, so it's easier to say.
Alrighty.
Person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but yeah, so a person in a lab coat that I don't know. I don't know what their motivations are, but I do know there's a lot of motivations for profit. It's hard not to think that that sways people's, and time again. Like
Mm.
how many big pharmaceutical companies are being sued for libel or class action lawsuits?
Mm-hmm.
Most.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Mm-hmm.
trying to sell shit to people that they don't need, that harms them more. It's just the deal. And some of it helps, but if we look at, here's a story. This guy I went to high school with, liver cancer, right? I had enormous empathy to him, so enormous empathy for him. When I heard about it, I called him up. I said, I want to come visit, and I want to come and fill you full of love. And because I got Parkinson's, I got the magic ticket because I'm suffering too. And so he's in the palliative care. He's doing his best. And so they're feeding him for full of so many drugs. His tongue's fucked up, right? He's got this coating on his tongue. So what do they want to do? Feed him more drugs. Oh fuck. His mom was like, let's get a tongue scraper. So rather than, like a Ayurvedic tongue scraper does a job, less side effects, but these fucking bozos in their lab coats are too fucking stuck on feeding, it's hard. I sound bitter, but it's like, it's irritating. It's so twisted. And, and we as Westerners, as Canadians, are so afraid of suffering. And, it kind of sucks at times.
Yeah.
But
I mean, there's a book I'm reading called, I think it's called Returning Upward. I can't remember the name of the book, but it's written by a priest, actually, a Catholic priest. His name is Dr. Richard Rohr, and he talks about the second part of life, and giving a lot of credibility for the second part of life, because we're stuck kind of like on the first part. And so how much our culture is, and in a way, is very adolescent. So, and I resonate with that so much, because our emotional intelligence is like at the low scale, as a culture, as society. So when you receive the gift of Parkinson's or anything else, again, that comes, our way for us, it's to us and for us where it's happening for our development and expansiveness.
I can attest that that's been my experience.
Right.
But it's just getting past the fear. And I understand the Western medical model wants to alleviate symptoms because that's how they roll. And that's their ideology. And people get scared, like, fix me, doctor, give me the magic bullet. I get it. It's a
Yeah, of course.
adolescent, and it's just.
Yeah, I'm not going to take away from someone's journey as well but it does give at times a bit of a reprieve to even allow a pause for someone. Let's just say if they needed, an anti-anxiety or an antidepressant, then it might just give that individual like this clarity that they need to see things for what they are. And then maybe they can wean themselves off. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, and everyone has their own journey to experience. But I love the fact that you've opened yourself up to medical Qigong, and this is the path that you've chosen. Because it does take a lot of trust in yourself to do that, rather than going, okay, well, I'm going to go to the doctor just to double check what I'm doing and all the rest of it. And it just takes an incredible amount of trust to kind of shut that world out and be authentic and be with yourself in a new way.
Well, in full disclosure, I did take an anti-anxiety at the end of 2017 as prescribed by this Icelandic doctor. I took a quarter of a small dose.
Yeah.
Then I weaned myself off because it just helped me shut down the brain so I could sleep. Get
Right.
myself back on track, because that was massive. I was so scared.
Right.
When you
Right.
sleep for a year, you get really fucked up.
Right. Right. Right.
And so, yeah, the medical qigong, like I'll say, like I'm going through a bit of a faith, not crisis, but I'm struggling with faith at the moment because of medical qigong. Because medical qigong comes from China.
Right.
Wisdom comes from China, but also fucking COVID-19 from people eating fucking shit they shouldn't be comes from China.
Here we go. We've got the connection here. Okay.
Eating a donkey's dick thinking it's gonna fucking give you a better heart on is stupid. It's fucking dumb. And so it's hard for me I'm going through a bit of a faith piece, because how am I supposed to trust something that comes from the same place where people eat stupid shit?
Well, you do.
I like that.
It's like, going anywhere, and not everyone's going to have the integrity. We're not talking about the Chinese culture. We're talking about perhaps maybe, I don't know, the Communist Party or how they roll in that country. And then also how, we've fed, that's a whole other ball of wax, conversation about, where are most things made, and, and how that has added to their, pollution and all the rest of that. But there's a lot of sacredness in China.
That's true.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's really difficult to kind of separate that.
Well, I'm also vegan, so there might play a bit of like emotional piece for me too. Because there's a part where I was like, when it first started, I'm like, how could I have Parkinson's? I'm vegan. I'm holier than thou. I had this whole fucking pretentious bullshit going on, right?
Right.
I shouldn't have been touched because I'm doing the right thing, or at least thought I was. And so at one point, it was recommended that I go paleo. And so my wife was, much to my wife's chagrin, I tried paleo on the weekends when she was away.
Mm-hmm.
And I must say I enjoyed the texture of animal. I enjoyed the flavor.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't feel right emotionally, but at that point, it was their moral conundrum was like, if an animal's going to suffer, I'm going to suffer. I'll choose the animal suffering. It was that clear, cut and dry for me, but it didn't do shit. So I went back to vegan.
Mm-hmm. Well, so my friend, in closing,
I'm ready to keep going.
You're awesome. Well, I'm happy for you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that, because most people are like, they I'm shuffling around like an old man, and they want to do things for me, and I'm like, this is just part of what's going on. I used to do things fast. Now I do things slow.
Right. Well, I'm not happy for the fact that you've had Parkinson's. I'm more about, I don't know. I mean, just the sort of the more peace and joy that you have in your life.
Well, I want to quote Howard Schiffke at one point. He's like,
Okay.
Parkinson's is not a big deal. And, and if we look at it from that perspective, it's really not. Yeah, I shake. So what?
Right.
Yeah, I shuffle. Really not a big deal. My brain fog, it's kind of like being high all the time.
Right.
Like it's really not that big of a deal. It's not a terminal illness. And if we give all our power away to the
Yes.
label that's Parkinson's or cancer is a label for a group of symptoms. Cancer is a little different. Well, cancer is different, but Parkinson's is a label for a group of symptoms. I got some symptoms.
Well,
What can I do to change?
yeah. I mean, then would it be, is it fair to say then that our culture is focused on fear, obviously, more than anything else? But to the point now where I'm wondering if we're going to the opposite way, you got to think positive. You've got to think positive. And thinking positive isn't really the ticket to healing for me. It's not everything. It's more about embracing everything of what's going on.
I think it's both. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's giving yourself, yeah, because I hear what you're saying, because that's a struggle for me too, is acceptance. Because you, like we were talking a couple of days ago, and you didn't even know that I deal with Parkinson's,
That's right.
because
Yeah.
I'd covered it up with shame for a couple of years. I felt so much shame and felt like felt so less than because of this. And that's not true, right? Like in the love that I've experienced because this, and I think also because you were going through your journey at the same time. This is another reason why, I'm not going to bother you with my shit when you've got your own stuff to do, right? Like, even though there might have been some camaraderie, I mean, the change has been massive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know, and I part of me feels like I should be more contemplative and more use less swear words, but at some point I'm like, hey, fucking Parkinson's. Like, I'm gonna say whatever the hell I want. I'm no longer a heterosexual white guy. I'm a gimp. I can play the disabled card. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, in this time in history when the heterosexual white male is a pejorative, I'm no longer that. I now gain some credibility within that group of people that want to label a group of negatively because of their bunch of things they can't control.
Ah, okay. Yeah, you're referring to the white male has done XYZ?
Is that everything? Absolutely.
Right. You mean you're right.
I'm no longer. I'm now disabled. So I get to play a gimp card.
Well, even then, you don't get what is it called? A free ticket, a green card or anything. You're still a white guy.
I'm still not as bad though.
No, 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 no. Those terms to me are, you know, I don't know, they're useless.
I agree.
All in the sense of I don't care what gender, what religion, whatever you are, feminist, non-feminist, I don't really care. That to me is identity stuff, and we're far more than that. And when we use those things, and I know that you're not right now, but when we use those things as a woman as a XYZ, it's like it's so irrelevant. I mean, it really depends on what's going on in your heart at the end of the day. In my opinion, again.
I agree. Maybe that's not the topic we want to talk on.
No, let's like, yeah, stay focused.
Although
So
at the same time, that's something that my buddy of mine and I laugh about. A Jewish friend of mine, I laugh because
mhm.
I'm now intersectional, right?
Ah,
Right. I'm now part of that. It's just and it's a sense of ridiculousness that we laugh at it. I've done a lot of soul searching around this stuff, even though I don't sound very soulful.
at the moment.
Lauren, you're great.
Oh, well, okay, thank you. As you are. Thanks for shaking it up. Thanks for showing up with the odd F-bomb here, there, and everywhere.
I gotta be who I gotta be at this stage, right?
Yeah, this is true.
I'm not a spiritual teacher. I'm a guy that's on the spiritual journey because of this extreme gift.
Well, I don't know. What are spiritual teachers supposed to look like or behave like?
Well, they're certainly not supposed to sexually molest their students.
Well, that's okay. That's a whole other conversation. But no, but you know, we can show up with being a little rough around the edges. You know, it's all good.
Mm,
Um, well, thank you. Thanks so much for today. I really, really appreciate it. I think you're amazing.
as you are too.
Yeah.
And that looks pretty
Continued
awesome.
success with your path of discovery.
Thank
With
you.
your with all your relationships, the relationship with yourself, all those good things.
With my mom who lives upstairs in our duplex.
Oh, wow, awesome. Oh, wow, right on. Well, take care. Take care of your friend, your gift.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining, and we'll see you next time. Bye, Dustin.
Bye, Lauren.
All right.